as we gather, we are mindful of those who are going through traumatic experiences and of the difficulties that we have faced. And we know so many in our world feel that they are lost and alone with no hope. May we continue to be people filled with love that we offer to the world, so that all may know they are cared for and they matter. Amen. The water phenomenon that attracts the most visitors in the United States is undoubtedly Niagara Falls. Actually, it's a series of 3 waterfalls: Bridal Veil Falls, American Falls, and Horseshoe Falls, also known as the Canadian Falls, depending on which side you're on. How many of you have been to Niagara Falls? See? Okay. Niagara Falls is the largest waterfall system in North America and the 7th most powerful falls in the world, dwarfed by the likes of Iguazu Falls in Brazil, Victoria Falls in Africa, and Angel Falls in Venezuela. Niagara Falls as a whole drops 5.9 million cubic feet of water per minute. The most powerful of the 3 drops is Horseshoe Falls. And since 1882, Niagara Falls has been used to generate power. It is still the largest electricity producer in New York. In 1843, the noted free slave and abolitionist Frederick Douglass viewed Niagara Falls. He described this experience: "When I came into its awful presence, the power of description failed me, and irresistible power closed my lips." This is from a man who wrote continuously and spoke continuously. We could call that experience of Niagara Falls stunning. Now, today we heard a story about a very different kind of water feature. The well in the story of Hagar and Ishmael is not a stunning spectacle, creating a captivating viewing experience. No. In the story we heard from Genesis, the well is subtle. In fact, at first, it escapes observation. We're told that the slave Hagar and her son Ishmael have been ejected from their only home. Some of us know what that's like. With 1 loaf of bread and 1 skin of water, they've been consigned to a death sentence in the desert. Why? God has promised Abraham and Sarah that they will be the progenitors of a vast nation. They follow God's dictates, and they move to a new land where this new people will be established, where their descendants, who number more than the stars of the night sky, will live and thrive. They've been given that promise, but no children come. Sarah takes matters into her own hands and sends her slave girl Hagar to Abraham, her husband, so that her slave can bear a child for Sarah to fulfill God's purpose. And Hagar complies and bears the desired child, a son, Ishmael. But then Sarah herself becomes pregnant and has a child in her later years, Isaac. And there's contention between the two moms, between Sarah and Hagar. So finally, with Abraham's cooperation and God's apparently, Hagar and her child Ishmael are banished, essentially sending them into the desert to die. Today we hear of Hagar, so distraught with no more water or food for her child, sitting away from the boy because she cannot bear to watch him die or hear his cries as he does. She weeps and wails. But in this moment of supreme desperation, we're told that God hears the child. And God's promise is affirmed. Not only will God make a great nation from Sarah and Abraham through Isaac, but God will also make a great nation through Ishmael. God isn't restricted to making only one great nation. Is there anything too wonderful for God? So God opens Hagar's eyes to the well of water nearby, and she fills the skin with water. She gives it to Ishmael, and they live in Paran and then Egypt. And Ishmael is remembered as the progenitor of a great nation. From Ishmael come the Muslim people. Jews, then Christians, come from Isaac, but Muslims come from Ishmael. A great people populating the planet, serving the purposes of God, spreading justice, compassion, and peace. This whole world changing because of the water from a well, so small it could be missed by a tormented, distraught mother. And yet look at the power of that water from that little well, saving the lives of mother and child, empowering the global purposes of God to unfold through Islam. It's a powerful spectacle. Now, in the story we heard today, we're told God opens Hagar's eyes to see the well, the life-saving source of water. The water that could keep the dreams of God alive and flourishing. In our Christian tradition, we're told in the Gospel of John, in the story of the woman at the well, that Jesus is living water. As Christians, we've been given Jesus to sustain us. He is our well. He's been given to us to empower us, to show us the way, to fulfill God's promises and hopes and dreams and visions of justice and compassion and joy. He is our well, especially when we are facing distress and death. Jesus and his teachings give us water for our journey. They sustain us. They show us the way to navigate through our lives, even when we find ourselves in distressing situations, overcome with grief, trying to hold on, battered by the blows that life can deliver, literally and metaphorically. Jesus is for us that living water, that water of life with the power to open our eyes to restoration and healing and new life. Jesus enables us to flourish with joy, even when we've been brought to the brink. Life can bring devastating circumstances. We can feel sucked under by forces beyond our control. a health crisis, a loved one facing the ravages of addiction or mental illness, the toll taken by an economy that serves the 1%, creating poverty and pain for millions, betrayal or desertion in a relationship. There are so many ways we may experience feeling abandoned and left to suffer. And there is the devastation of the collapse of the dream of a country that actually cares for all of its citizens and helps them to thrive. The policies and practices of the US government are not just the stuff of theoretical and political and moral debate. They are ravaging lives and families with detention, with lack of food, with lack of health care, with services curtailed or ended, with the environmental disasters that lead to the loss of life, human and non-human, policies that actually kill rather than sustain life. And it can feel like we are being inundated by Niagara Falls. And yet we know there's a well. There is living water that's been shown to us to equip us to navigate the powers and forces of this life that can seem devastating. Jesus invites us to tap into the power of love to sustain us through the droughts and the inundations of life. Jesus shows us the will of God is for all people and the planet to thrive and be fruitful and engage in generosity and mutual care. We are here to help each other, as we say in the hymn, go the mile and bear the load. Whatever it is that you are going through or those you love may be facing, Jesus is offering a cup of cold water. Jesus is seeking to lead and guide you to a place of abundance and joy. Jesus is the living water that sees us through the pain and healing process to peace. We can think of the amazing power of the water traversing Niagara Falls and the majesty of the powerful forces of nature. But let us remember what we heard today. God led Hagar to a well so inconspicuous it could be missed. God saved the life of Hagar and the life of her child so that the world would be forever changed through them, through the emergence of Islam and the Muslim people. As Christians, we see the power of God changing the world through a poor Palestinian Jew from the countryside. A soul not from the halls of power or from a family of prominence and not a person of great financial wealth. No, through a poor Palestinian Jew, God has changed human history. And we are the heirs to the power of that divine love, working in us, working among us. Our lives are transformed and healed, and the world is forever changed. Now, maybe you have heard of Nick Wallenda and the Flying Wallendas. They are a family of aerialists, tightrope walkers, circus performers. Nick is a native of Sarasota and of the 7th generation of Flying Wallendas. He was the speaker at the New College of Sarasota graduation this past year. And Nick is a devoted Christian. He says the only thing he fears is God. So he was not afraid when he became the first person to traverse Niagara Falls on a tightrope. On June 15th, 2012, just about 14 years ago, Willenda walked 1,804 feet and 5 inches across the falls. It took about 25 minutes and was broadcast live. It was the one time in his career that he was required to wear a harness, or the authorities would not let him proceed. When he entered Canada across the tightrope, he was greeted by a customs official who posed the typical query, what do they ask you when you go into Canada? What is the purpose of your trip? And Willenda replied, to inspire people. Now, we worship a God who does not need to impress us with flashy exploits and miracles. A small well in the desert changes history. An obscure brown person in a barren land gives us life today. Divine love has the power to change life and create history through what is meager, obscure, and seemingly worthless. Never doubt what the power of divine love can do in your life and in this world. Amen.